So yet again, welcome everyone. And as I said, I will introduce myself very shortly. I'm Anna Liebel. My name is German for my husband, but I'm Ukrainian myself, living in Iceland. So it's quite a fun mix, and the constant um, environment of being outsider in some shape or form, which I love about my life. So I just want to bring that perspective as well into today's session, for you to know that I'm used to asking questions from different angles because I've been in different shoes in many situations in my life. So don't be shocked when there will be a question turned to you somehow in a way that you might not have expected. But I hope that you'll find it valuable, even if it's a bit uncomfortable in the beginning, because this is something that usually helps you overcome the challenges that you might face. Because as Einstein was saying, it's a bit of an insanity to try to solve the problems in the same dimensions or in the same ways as they were created. And that's what we'll be trying to do today. We shift you in a different dimension of thinking so that you can solve the problems that you might be challenging in your life, facing in your life. I am calling myself a mind shifter, and that's another point of that I will try to really move you to thinking in a different way. As I said, we need that to solve the problems, and I really hope that you will be open to that today. And today's topic is about cleaning up your life. I love this topic. I love this masterclass, and every time I deliver it, I see how it's changing people's life when they commit to taking action from that. And you'll hear me a lot talking about commitment and taking action today. And we'll start with that today in the masterclass, but I really hope that you'll take it from the masterclass and continue with that afterwards. And please feel free to stay in touch with me afterwards to let me know how is it going, where do you feel stuck, where is the progress, how is that changing your life? Because I always love seeing that continuity of the process and the journey of people in my community. I'm checking, there's no one in the waiting room, great. So why do I love this topic? I'll give you an example of one of my clients, and from the conversation that we had just 2 weeks ago. He's a successful entrepreneur, growing his company every year. And in the last year, we have been working quite a lot on him getting out of money generating projects, but energy draining projects, into getting into his zone of genius, owning what he's good at and what he loves doing. Both boxes have to be ticked, and owning that space for himself. And in the last conversation we had, he started talking a bit about I really want to invest more in this and that, and for that I need to generate more money, so I probably will take this project. And I know that that's not something for him. And I told him, look, listen to yourself what you're doing right now. You taking your time and energy for something you don't love, and that makes you have less energy for doing the things that you love and promoting and getting more of those projects. So the money that you're getting don't bring you joy, and you start to resent your business. And we were there in spring when he was successful on paper, but he was almost resenting his business because he was again taking things that were for the money to invest into the things that he likes. And he laughed at that and said, this is just a time and energy management workshop in one sentence. And this is something I want you to really realize, that quite often we are ready to pay some price, which is good. It's good to be able to maybe hustle a bit and get into some less pleasant things for ourselves. But it's always important to understand, why do I do it? For what? For what is this, the ultimate reason for that? And for how long am I ready to pay this price? And that's where he was falling back in those old patterns of, okay, I need more money to grow this part of my business, but by the time I have this more money, I don't have the energy to grow this part of my business, and I want to close the whole thing down because I spent all my energy into this money generating thingy. And just from his example and his spring experience, it took him 2 weeks to turn those things after our conversation back in spring, to turn down some opportunities, and suddenly new things were popping up. He suddenly would generate thousands of dollars in his business just out of nowhere, because he decided to focus on what he actually loves doing and what he wants to grow without waiting for that drainage to generate some money for that. And I know that not all of you here are entrepreneurs and are completely free to decide that kind of scope for yourself with your business. But I want to give this example as a very powerful story of how much you can change. And that can be both in your employment and in your personal life. I will be giving examples of hopefully from all three. I'll try to do it from all three areas: when you're an employee, when you are self-employed, but also how do you do it in personal life with the ADOD or method that we'll be going through today. And before we go into that method, I want you to drop in the chat or unmute yourself, what is more comfortable for you, and state how is your life right now. How is it feeling with the overwhelm, with the stress? Do you feel like your workload, and by workload I don't mean work professionally related only, but generally mental load and physical load on yourself in your life? Maybe on a scale from 1 to 10, how do you feel with that? And by 1 being not so overloaded and 10 stressed and feeling overwhelmed. So I want you to share how your situation is right now.
Okay, I'll go first. 9.5.
Okay.
Yeah, just one of those things. I mean, yeah, things have congregated. So yeah, 9.5. So it could be worse. It could be 10.
Yeah, you left a bit of that space, right, to the 10. Thanks for sharing, Daniel. And then next question, Ashamala, I'll give you a word in a moment. Next question, that once you have answered that for yourself, and if you don't feel free sharing publicly with us what your number is, just send it as a private message to me if you want, just so that I know how to adjust the content based on your current situation and your needs. The next question I want you to ask yourself is, what is my intention? How do I want to reach the lower number there? Or maybe to what number, for Daniel's case, and from 9.5, where do I want to end up in the next 4 weeks? What do you think is challenging enough but reasonable enough? So yes, Shamala, you wanted to share.
Oh, hi. Yeah. I don't actually feel stressed as such. The reason, firstly, this is the first time joining the class, so I'm really grateful that, I could sign up. What I'm hoping to sort of actually achieve is to get the extra kick to actually clean up certain areas of my life, because right now I think I'm sort of stuck in a bit of a rut because of my personal situation with my dad having just left us in August. So I just want to sort of just get over that, so that there's certain things that I really should sort of clean up, actually get started within the next 4 weeks, but stress as such, I've actually got that under control, so I'm not really sort of feeling stressed about that. But I think it would be nice, to actually sort of just get over the threshold.
Thank you so much for sharing, Shamala. And I think this is a very beautiful example of how different it can be when people are coming to these masterclasses. When Daniel says that his stress level is 9.5 out of 10, and then Shamala is sharing that there is no stress really, but there is some space of improvement where I can maybe optimize something, where I can release something that is not serving me at the moment, but probably served in the past. But the context has changed. So this is a beautiful example of whatever we come with, it's our journey, and you will get the same information from me, but each of you will take something different for yourself. For someone, it's just the start of the journey today of realizing, heck, I'm stressed. What the hell do I do with this information? Up to maybe being years into their journey and feeling like I'm fine. I'm not just about to hit the wall, but there are still things to improve. There are still things that I want to be more aware of and improve and work on, and so on and so forth. So thanks so much for sharing, both of you, that. I see Martin wrote to everyone, so I'll read it out. I think my number is around 8, only due to starting a new business up, and my ideal number is 6. Wonderful. Great. And congrats for having just 8. If you're just starting your business, that's already an accomplishment, I would say. And it sounds wonderful. And 6 is an entrepreneur with a startup is it's a beautiful journey to have. And I think with today's information, and if you commit to taking action afterwards in the next 4 weeks, you definitely can reach go down to 6. Anyone else wants to share? Therese?
Yeah,
Yes.
sure. I would say maybe I'm at like 7 or 8 right now. Like I've been taking on a lot of, mostly fun things, which makes it sort of a good stress, I suppose. But it can still be overwhelming on some days. So it's not like all the time I feel it's overwhelming, but some days it can just be like too much. And then, so I'm guessing I should try to go down a little bit, a couple of numbers or something. So yeah, could be like
from 7, 8 to 5, 6.
Yeah, maybe, yeah.
And here, from what I hear, is like, and I know a bit of the background, right, of the fun things, and committing to maybe too many of them. This is a beautiful example of where the framing that we'll be having right now is not necessarily about the activities and commitments that we need to lower the number of, but it can be a mental thing and our attitude and the thoughts. And that's what the mind shift is, right? To start thinking differently about the things that we have in our life. So maybe for Therese, the conclusion for today and her next actions for the next 4 weeks will not be about saying no to some of those activities that she took onto herself, but more about reminding herself why she's doing them and be very intentional when she goes into the ideas. But maybe she also decides to no, I actually don't need this and this and this. Those 2 can give me enough. But that's, again, it's yet another sharing where I want to emphasize that it's very different what each of us can do to lower the stress, to lower the feeling of overwhelm, and to adjust the information that you'll be getting today to your concrete situation. So yeah, thanks for sharing. Jay, do you want to share, or shall we get going further? Let me know how your situation in the field is. Looks like he's just listening more in the background today. Great. Then we go into the conversation. So I hope that it sounds like you all have the motivation to really think of what do I want to clean up in my life. And with example of my client, I started framing the picture of why it is important. Because quite often we spend our energy and time, and I will be talking like a broken record today about those 2 together, time management and energy management, time budget and energy budget, investing your time and energy, and so on and so forth. So we quite often are looking into those commitments and taking some of them that drain us. And there is so much space for optimization that can release time and energy for us to be in our zone of genius. And you have attended my previous masterclass about defining your sustainable leadership. What is your zone of genius? You will know that it's a very important part for living your life without wasting too much of your energy. And it doesn't mean being on 24/7. It doesn't mean that you need to perform and just be optimized and to every millisecond of your life. No, it's not about that. Not wasting energy is about knowing your nature, so your starting point, but also knowing where you want to get and aligning connecting the dots of those two. And where you want to get, it might be your life goals, it might be some very measurable things, but it can also be what kind of person do you want to be? What kind of impact do you want to create for yourself, for your family, or for the broader community, whatever it is. So it is really about connecting those dots. And for being able to have the headspace to connect those dots, this mental and also emotional exercise of doing that, and to implement that, we need time and energy. And that's what we're doing today. We're cleaning up the time and energy to be able to have the resources to do that journey. And what we'll be doing today is we're going to be identifying activities, relationships, commitments, and thoughts that are draining you and don't have to do it. So there might be things that you'll figure out like, yes, this is draining for me, but right now I don't have any other opportunity. And I want you to be open to that. And of course, first we'll be brainstorming, like, how can you, is there really no opportunity to change that right now? But if there is no, and it's your active choice, that is a very empowering feeling. I want you to see it that way. If we figure out that something can be changed, accepting that this is my active choice right now, and I'm ready to take the trade-offs and the price of that. It's not a draining part, but it is really you taking responsibility for your life and your power. And what we'll be doing is creating a strategy on how you can actually reduce your stress by taking particular actions for those activities, relationships, commitments, and thoughts. And why I ask you about the 4-week stretch for now is that because yes, we'll be doing some work right now, but this method is the it has its most power when you have worked with it over time, because you might not come up with all the answers right now about the things that might be draining you. That comes up later. And I want you to really commit to implementing and to playing with this method for the next couple of weeks for yourself, right? I'm not going to be standing over your shoulder, pointing fingers at you. Hopefully I'm not going to come in your dreams and like saying, why are you not doing this? But I want you to do it for yourself, to really figure out what this method can give me and take it from that. Really, I want you to also understand that it's time to take, because I know that a lot of people in my community are the ones who are giving and giving too much. And now I want again to bring your attention to taking. And that will be also part of how we will be minimizing your stress and overwhelm levels. So we'll be working with the framework of ADOD. And I don't know whether it was one of my business coaches that I worked with, Kelly Roach, that came up with this, or she took it from someone. I never asked her, but this is the acronym that she's using. And it stands for automate, delegate, outsource, and delete. So what we'll be doing is listing the things and then understanding and figuring out where or what can we do, what kind of action can we take with the things that are draining us. And I want you to start taking some time for doing just that, thinking through and listing down, write down it on a piece of paper or in a notes document on the computer. What are the activities that fill your schedule? Think about your typical week, maybe open your calendar to look at that, maybe open your to-do list or whatever you're using for structuring your life, and start writing down things that fill your days and fill your head. Since we're talking about time and energy management, I want you to think about that. And I'll give you a couple of minutes. I'll just mute myself. I'm here available to answer your questions, but I will give you 2 minutes now to really write down something that we can work with. And feel free to ask me questions if you need. So my timer went off. And I'd like to open up the floor here. Whoever is feeling okay to share. I just would like to hear some of the activities that you're directly catching yourself on. Like, yeah, this is taking a lot of my time or my energy or unnecessary time or energy. So, Daniel, would you like to share anything?
Sure. Yeah. I find quite often that it's the thinking and not the doing, and some of it, when you're in stress mode, is the worrying about things. You know, it's the smaller part that's the actual blasting through things and doing things, and that's the one thing. The other thing is I'm thinking when I'm trying to write these, you know, categorize them into ADOD, I I found out that there are a few of them that I can't, but that I can postpone. So, you know, it's not, you know, I can't do anything on the ADOD about it, but I can prioritize so that they're not taking up any headspace now, you know, but pushing them forward to another week or a month, or sometimes even a year, you know, if it's the bigger picture. Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. That is definitely an action that you can do. I'm reading the message from Jay. He's saying that there is a lot of activity noise in the background that would detract from the masterclass. So thanks for being mindful of the space here for the other participants live and those who are catching the replay, Jay. But I'm happy that you could join. So for the context of those who joined after or a bit later than Jay, he's serving in the British Army right now. They are in the fields in the UK countryside doing exercises. So he's tuning in from from quite some action. And I love it, Daniel, how you said about postponing things. That is also an active decision that we can do. And what you're talking about, the worrying, that is also part of that, right? We can actually decide like, okay, I can worry about that, but maybe not right now, because right now there is no power and no context for me to be able to change this. So this is something that we can also do, and that can be a very powerful shift for ourselves to actively decide to postpone something. So thanks for sharing that insight. Shamala, Terias, Martin, I don't know. Martin, how about you? Whether you're free to share anything, or you also, it's difficult for you to unmute, so, but please let us know.
I can share actually. I have to agree there with Daniel actually. For me, it's the intention is there, but due to how things have been for the past couple of months, it's more actually sort of taking the step to actually to do it, you know, because I don't have a sort of a deadline for it as such, but I do know deep down the sooner I start, the less time I will spend thinking about it. And this is part of the cleanup that has to happen. So I don't worry about it as such, but I feel guilty that I haven't sort of taken the first step as such. I mean, it's just like finishing off a book that I was writing about my dad and things like that. But it's because I know it's going to be quite how shall I put it? It's going to be quite an emotional hurdle to get over. And so it's a question of when do I think I'll be ready for it? You know, it's just things like that have to sort of go through my mind, and that takes energy and time, I must say.
Thank you for sharing, Shamala. And it's great that both of you are sharing that. As you see, if what we started with, that Daniel had quite a high stress levels, Shamala not, but the reasons for the stress or overwhelm in general, or those stones that they want to clean up, are the thoughts, the worries, right? The lack of action. And that is why I'm always talking about time and energy management together, because if we do time management solely, we focus on the actions. But if we take the energy management, there it becomes more natural for us to think what takes energy from us, and it's quite often our thoughts and lack of action. And when we realize that, it's much easier to shift that and to make a big change in our life on that matter. And Shamala, just regarding your book about your dad, the psychology shows that it's powerful to share and to verbalize the stories and our emotions, but it can be too soon sometimes after some traumatic experiences. And of course, your dad, you spent some time with him, right? He was older, and it might not be a like extremely traumatic experiences, losing someone young and so on, but still just want to put it out there that it be very gentle to yourself with these kind of tasks, opening up that bound when it's a bit still too raw can be a bit too tough or unnecessarily tough. So be very intentional with why you want to share that story. Why do you want to write that book? Is it for yourself or for someone else? And also, are you really ready? So just want to make sure that you're not pushing yourself into something that can be hurtful for yourself. Thanks for sharing. Therese, would you like to share anything?
Yeah, I mean, like at work, for example, I have my days pretty much filled up with meetings again now, and I'm not sure how much I can control it. But then there's also the issue that I have maybe 7 or 8 different projects that I'm working with. So then it's like switching context all the time, which is the most draining part, maybe. And I'm not sure how I would control that either. So it's maybe yeah.
Yeah, those are tricky, especially when you might not have like it might not make sense to say like, hey, Peter on my team, like, let's do it that you take these 2 projects and I take these 2 projects instead of us being in all 4. So splitting that way, because you have unique expertise that both yours and Peter's is needed in all 4 projects. So that is a tricky part. But let's look at that during the ADOD, and maybe it's more about make it more compartmentalized. Oh my god, that word is not on my tongue today, but you understand what I mean. Really making a bit more like silo or separated blocks, because as you said, context switching is a tough thing that takes a lot from us. So let's see what we can optimize and improve there. Thanks for sharing. So Martin is writing, I agree with Daniel, but starting a business means running around, talking to new customers and getting them to sign up. But the thinking and worries is taking up a lot of time, and most of it should be parked and dealt with later. Yeah. Having my own company and going with it through COVID and having a small kid in a new country, I know those struggles in maybe a different way. I don't know how your context is. But yes, Martin, it's again, it's a decision. It's something that we can do to take our power back. And when I'm sometimes turning the worries back at my clients, they can get triggered by that and feel resistance and feel like I'm challenging them in a negative way when I'm showing that, hey, this is your responsibility, that you're worrying about this. But usually until the next session, they had some time to process and get the emotions down, and they realized that yes, and having the responsibility is not a bad thing. I really love to emphasize that responsibility, the word itself means responsibility, your ability to respond to what is happening. And when you take responsibility of your life, it means that no matter what the context is, what are the external circumstances, you're taking responsibility for what is yours. Your life, your decisions, your actions, your reactions. So this is just another small mind shift of understanding the etymology of the word that can help taking some decisions in a bit of easier way, parking some things in an easier way, or doing the ADOD to some of the activities. And or thoughts and worries, as in the examples that many of you have talked about right now. So thanks a lot for sharing, everyone. The next step I want you to take as well, 2 minutes or so, is to start categorizing a bit the things on the list that you have created. What we're doing is we're emphasizing the things that feel blah, that really draining us, that feel like they're not optimal, they are nothing that we want to keep in this shape and form in our life. And once you have done that, the next step is to start looking for patterns. Is it some particular time of the day when you feel low on energy, annoyed, irritated, whatever, or worried, whatever it is? And if it's that like a particular time of the day when those activities happen, is it the nature of the activity, or is it your natural cycle when you have better energy, higher energy, and when you are more tired? So I want you to start looking at the list that you have created for now. As I said, I hope that this will be a live-in list in the next couple of weeks and you'll be working with this. But for you to go through the whole process right now, we're taking a smaller part. And look at that. What does not feel well to me from my list? And what kind of patterns do I see with my days and my week, with the energy levels and my feelings? Again, I'll put a timer for 2 minutes. I mute myself. I'm here to answer the questions. So, how are we doing here? Shall we start the other way around? I think Therese was last to share. Maybe you want to tell us whether you see any patterns there, and what kind of things have you written there?
I only wrote down that I basically don't have time to cook. That's the only thing I have, or like no time to wind down, or no time to, and that's, I mean, yeah, the pattern from doing all these things, all these activities that I have, and I know that's not good for me either to have like, yeah.
What happens with your food pattern when you don't have time to cook? Do you skip meals completely, or do you just grab something on the go?
No, I just eat crap. So I don't skip meals, but it's usually not very good stuff. So, and I know how that affects me and my body and how I feel about everything, like mentally and everything. So, but that's how I prioritize things.
Now I'll go back to what we worked with you earlier. when we discussed the meal planning. How is that going? Did you practice that anymore in the past couple of months?
No, don't think, no.
Was it because you forgot about it, about that part, or you just didn't actively prioritize doing that?
I did not prioritize it.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Thanks for sharing. How about the others? Shamala.
I'm thinking about this now because I mean, you're triggering the thoughts and what I actually do, and you know, what's energy level is not an issue for me as such, because here I think this is a conscious decision on my part to. I always prioritize my exercise over this sort of cleaning up that I have to do. So, I make sure that I get out and I make sure I exercise 4 or 5 days a week, go out for walks and whatever. So, energy is not an issue. It's just the fact that I know when I sort of physically clear out certain things, that is also, as you said, it's also for me, it's marking that this is the next phase of my life. Actually, sort of clearing out things because I know these no longer serve me. Soon to be totally the empty nester as well. So it's all those sort of things, right? So energy is not an issue. It's just sort of getting over the threshold and actually doing the first maybe an hour a day. I don't know. I'm hoping I get that. Just sort of an hour a day of clearing things to sort of get me over the threshold. So that's what I'm hoping for.
Very interesting. So I love it how aware you are of that when you're getting ready for the new phase in your life, that usually brings this necessity or the feeling of I want to clean up, so clear up space for that. And that's exactly what we're doing today. So it's wonderful that you have it as a habit and you understand that it's just a natural part of the process. And that's something that I want to emphasize for the rest of the participants, that this is again showing that whatever we're going through, it's natural and it's good to accept it as such instead of trying to find the nature. All right, so you don't have issues with energy, Shamala, and it's really about getting into action.
Yes, exactly.
Wonderful. Let's work on that strategy today in the rest of the workshop. Thanks for sharing. I see a message from Martin here. Not spending time with friends and miss out on running. Which means that I worry about this and getting angry at myself. So here it's interesting to understand. You already said not spending time, right? Does it mean that you don't prioritize it? You never put, or like, is it again an active? Just a bit of what I asked Therese. Is it an active choice of not prioritizing it, or it's just skipping your mind and then only now when you sit and reflect for yourself do you realize that this is something that you have been missing? So it's a first step to take an action to understand what is going on right now, and if time with friends and the time for running are the things that you want to happen more in your life, what we can do in the rest of the workshop is really looking at your schedule, thinking like, okay, when would I meet friends? Usually it's difficult to do it on the work time because everyone is working and they're busy. So that probably is happening in the evenings and weekends. Okay, what does usually happen for me on that time? How can I clear up those slots to put friends in there so that it does happen? So what can we do with the activities that are happening there? Can we move them somewhere around? Can we optimize with the ADOD or maybe postpone them? So this is one of the ways of doing it. To start looking at where would it happen, where it's easiest for it to happen, and then what can we do so that that slot is for this priority of yours. Thanks for sharing. Daniel, how about you?
Yeah, sure. I think quite often I'll go back to this prioritizing again, right? I noticed Sometimes I kind of like lose focus. There's more stress when the ability to prioritize disappears, right? So on a, I get more control if I can brain dump it. Well, I usually say from bee swarm to beehive, you know, from this of thoughts to actually just, you know, putting them in the hive and like, you know, it's more structured and productive and it can't all fit at once. Whereas if it's just around us, all the thing, oh, I have to do this and I think about that and the other, you know, we end up rushing around, very stressed and not being productive either, you know, as productive as we could be, or enjoying the process. I think, you know, that's what I think about a lot, you know, that I can see when there's a swarm of thoughts and that I can just brain dump them and then structure them and, you know, a bit more.
Yeah, and it's great that you know the power of the brain dump, and it's something that I introduce to a lot of my clients who don't know don't know the concept, and it is just what Daniel said. Downloading everything from your brain onto paper or onto your electronic notes just to get it out of your system. And it's funny to see with some of my clients how the first 15-20 minutes of our session is usually just them brain dumping things on me. And in the beginning I was stressed, like I thought, okay, I need to pause them and to address this thing, to start asking questions, digging deeper into what's going on, and or I started taking notes like, okay, discuss this, until I realized that's not about that. It's about them having the space and the time to sit down, verbalize what's going on in their life. Those are successful entrepreneurs. They have a lot on their plate and a lot happening in between the sessions. And they just want to have some time for themselves to realize it and own it and just get it out of the system. And I can see when I started doing that, like I don't put pressure on myself to directly address all those things. I'm just sitting there like nodding, interacting somehow, but showing that I'm listening, but I'm giving that space for them. I can see that when they're done, their shoulders drop, they have this sigh of relief, and they're ready to discuss and go deeper into some particular things. But before that, if I directly jump into the session of like, okay, let's work on this, we discussed this last time, let's dig deeper here, I will not reach the same result with them because they don't have the headspace to process it in the right way. So brain dumping is a very powerful tool, and I have been having quite a lot of conversations in the past couple of weeks, ironically, about the to-do list, which can somehow be associated with a brain dump. And what I have realized is a lot of people see the to-do list as something that always has to go down to zero. And to me, a to-do list is the brain dump of the activities, like, okay, write to this person, do this, and check this, and so on and so forth. It's a living document. It's never empty. And in one of the conversations recently, I said, it's like lungs. Like, think about your to-do list as lungs. If they contract too much, if you get all the air out of them, you're dead. And that's the same with the to-do list. If there is nothing on your to-do list, it probably means that you don't have any ambitions, you don't have life. You have nothing to do in that life anymore. If you try to blow up the lungs more than their capacity, they will explode. And that's again means that you're in trouble. That's the same with the to-do list. If we're just dumping things on our brain dump on our to-do list and don't get anything, don't process what's going on there, then of course we'll be very overwhelmed when we look at it, because it's just growing all the time. It doesn't have this natural contraction in between. But that's what I want you to think about. I want you to see those contraction and expansions of the to-do list as natural pattern, and it's okay that sometimes it's smaller, sometimes it's bigger, as long as it's never zero and never at an exploding rate. Another thing is that since this is a living document, you should never think that I always have to take off everything, but you use that to evaluate, okay, what is relevant for me right now? What is the most important part right now? Like in the example of Therese, it can be tricky with running 6 and 7 projects, or it's not about it is tricky to run and have the context and the situation of 6, 7 projects in hand. But when you write down all those things and then you look at them and thinking, what is the most important, what is the most urgent thing right now? What will be the biggest needle moving part here? And I think here the important shift that might need to happen is to not look like what is the most valuable for my company or what is the biggest needle mover for my project right now, but more for me. And that can feel scary when you're in employment, when you're a consultant coming into a company and so on and so forth. But I think this is the way to, again, to have the bravery of saying no to things or to think differently when it comes to managing different stakeholders and their interests. You always have to be in the center of your life. And it's a fucking tricky challenge, really. I have been working on that for years, and I'm still going back into some patterns, especially with a new context like the work back home and so on and so forth. I need to learn how to put myself in the center. It's an active process that is a journey. But when you put that as a priority for myself, how can I put myself in the center here? It can trigger people around, but it's worth those conflicts and the discomfort. And just yesterday I had a conversation with one of the friends from Mastermind where we're supporting each other, how she was saying that my client canceled the session for today, and she said that I can do it on Saturday. And I pushed back and I said, no, Saturday is my family time, I cannot do it on Saturday. And I know that 1 year ago it would have been a huge problem for her, and she would have said yes, and she would have moved the kids' activities around for Saturday to clear up the space for the client. She didn't do it now, and I'm so proud of her, because by that she's modeling to her client that you can have your life. You don't need to compromise the quality of your relationships for the sake of having a successful business. And that's how I usually choose coaches and people in whose circles I want to be. People who are modeling for me what I want to have in my life. I want to have them in my daily environment to see as a reminder that it's possible. And for that to be my kind of permission given ticket to say no to things, to remind about my boundaries, to keep my boundaries myself. So that was a bit of a rant. But yeah, you can clearly see that I'm passionate about that, and it's just on top of mind of a lot of people right now. So there are a lot of things that I want to address in this topic. All right, now we have talked about what activities are a struggle for you, right? That take energy, that drain you. And now we'll get into the ADOD. Automate, delegate, outsource, delete. So we want to put those things under the four categories of each of those actions. And I want you to always challenge yourself. If you want to put something under automation, for example, think, do I really need to automate it, or can I first delete it? Or can I delete it instead? So the rule of thumb is never automate something that can be deleted, and never delegate or outsource, so engage some other people for something that can be automated. I'll give you an example with my podcast, for example. We used to write huge show notes for each episode. And there was a person in my team who was doing that. She would listen to the episode and create a, what is it called? Kind of a text from transcription from the episode, and then she would spend 2 hours or so writing the huge show notes that where almost like a separate blog post, and then she would do a blog post on top of that. And at some point I was like, okay, how can we automate it? And I started thinking about that because I saw that there are some tools that do it automatically, that you provide some kind of template for how the show notes should look, and they take the audio, they make a transcript, and then they put this part of the transcript into the show notes template. And I thought of automating that, but then I was like, can it be deleted? And I actually asked my audience on LinkedIn, how often do you read show notes? What power does it bring into like you deciding whether you listen to the episode or not? And what are you looking for in the show notes? And I figured out that people mainly look for some bullet points of main ideas and the links that people refer to, or resources that people refer to in the episode. Now it takes us 5 minutes to create that maximum instead of several hours before, because we deleted this process of creating a whole essay in the show notes. So this is one of the examples of where you can think like, okay, there are automation tools for this, but do I really need to automate something that does not serve me or my client, my audience, and so on? Same with the delegation and outsourcing. Yes, you can involve someone else whose time is maybe less pricey than yours if you're the CEO, but at the same time, do you really need to involve a human to do something if there is an automation? And here I want to give an example that is a bit less standard, but from a personal life. We're putting a lot of effort with my husband into, or we're very intentional and active about spending time as a couple, despite us having a toddler in a country where none of our families live. And at some point we decided, okay, we'll do weekly dates, and for that we need a babysitter. And in the beginning we would be like looking every week at the day when is it best for us, ask the babysitter, and so on and so forth, until we decided, no, we just put it on our calendar that Friday is our date night. Our babysitter knows it. She lets us know if she has some other plans, and then we replan, and we let her know if we want to replan that. But default is Friday evening, she's coming and taking care of our daughter, and we're going out for some date. This is an example of automation where it's not about the tool, but about the decision. I could have said, this is just so much energy, like it's taken so much energy from me, and I would just ask my husband to do it. So I could have delegated that to him to make this decision on a weekly basis, but it doesn't need to be that way. We can put it as a placeholder. And it's again, that's what you can do with things that you want to happen, that you put them on your calendar. With the Martin's example of friends or running, automation can be just taking this decision for yourself on a recurrent basis, so that he doesn't need to do it on a like every day, like, do I run today? He knows that, okay, I can run at work time on Tuesdays and Thursday morning and Saturday on like during the day or evening, whatever. So, and that he puts in the blocks on his calendar as a recurring event. And that is so important for a lot of us to take the decision, like to take those decisions on a repetitive basis or automated basis to avoid the decision fatigue. And that's the power of automation. And also delegation and outsourcing. When you can limit the number of decisions that you need to make on a daily basis, on a weekly basis. So let me know how things are for you with these 4 categories. Is any of them unclear, or do you have any specific activity that you are not sure where to place or how to do it? Let me know. Daniel?
Yes. Okay. Yeah. I mean, another thought that springs to mind. I don't know why I'm finding things outside this model constantly today, but a thing that springs to mind apart from the ADOD here is to decrease or optimize, right? So like you do more efficiently. So there are maybe things that I can't delete or delegate or outsource or automate. I don't really have any of those, but I can do them a lot more efficiently, right? So I can optimize the process. Or decrease. So it has to be done, but does it have to take that much time? Could I half the amount of time? Is it good enough, or am I doing it too well or too much? That kind of stuff. So you're optimizing and decreasing, still keeping them. That gives me another dimension to the, some of the things that I can't find fit into the model, but that, I can still alleviate my mind from to a certain extent.
Great, thanks. Therese, let's look at your endless projects. What are the thoughts there? Anything that could be automated?
I don't know, actually.
Are there any repetitive tasks that, or creations of documents and so on, that happen in multiple projects?
Not really.
Okay, so they're all unique.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's not about creating templates, for example, that could help you ease the tasks to do.
No.
Okay.
No, but I mean, we talked about this this type of to-do list before, right? And I've been using something similar, which didn't have automate. I think it was.
No, it was the Eisenhower matrix that you were using,
okay.
the important and urgent.
Yeah, exactly. And so I've been using that at least for, I mean, for work stuff only, but managing everything. And it's a bit similar, so I think it's yeah, that's been working pretty well.
Great. How has it been with the delegation, by the way?
I mean, I don't delegate much, but yeah, definitely more than before.
That's great.
Mm-hmm.
Congratulations on the progress.
Thank you.
But that's maybe something that you can look at right now. With having so many hats to wear, so many projects to take care of, what can you delegate to the interns you had in the company and someone else on the team, just that you're really using those unique experiences of yours and expertise of yours, and whatever can be done by someone else, how can we optimize it there? And that's again the thing that it might be uncomfortable to learn how to do it, but you've already started, and yeah, I would love to hear about that experience, how the delegation has been going, what are the results for you, for the project, for your mental state.
Yeah, because I think it was very useful to reflect on what tasks am I actually supposed to be doing, like what is part of my role. Like, okay, this is very urgent, but I mean, it's not really what I should be doing. So yeah, that was very useful for me.
This is something that we're discussing a lot, and I think in the beginning of our when we just got to know each other with you, Daniel, you were talking about that there were so many urgencies in the company where you were managing, and how to shift this mind that, okay, someone else's fire or emergency doesn't mean it has to be my emergency. And just because someone else failed to plan their work doesn't mean that I have to be hit by that. And taking that power and pushing back things where they belong, can be very triggering for people when they're not ready to work on their own shit and improve themselves. And it's very convenient for them to put it on someone else who is nice and capable. But this is unfortunately something that we need to do as part of our leadership journey. And leadership, I don't mean official leaders, but leading your life. And I really like this phrase that if you don't plan your ideal life, then you plan your non-ideal life. And when we just don't have the capacity to plan our ideal life, because we know that, okay, what's the point with planning anything, because people just drop all the things on me anyways last minute, and the whole plan goes to hell. That is something that we really need to get out of. Again, taking responsibility for our own life. And I'm very proud of you, Therese, that you started doing that, because I remember that discomfort that I could physically see on you when I started talking about delegating some things. And I'm very happy that you see the results of that, because it is a very powerful skill to have in life. So again, maybe that's the part where you can double down a bit more again, because there you already has started building some muscle. And if you can't delete some projects, then okay, what can be done that doesn't have to be done by you, meaning it can be delegated by someone or to someone within the company. And regarding outsourcing, maybe that's again the part with the food, for example. Taking those decisions outside of or off your list, mental list, and getting someone else to decide for you, or having subscriptions, which is then more as an automation on the private life or personal life, right? With the package coming to you every week with the recipes and ingredients, or even ready meals. Because again, you're very aware of the effects of good nutrition that on your well-being, and physical and mental and emotional. So then what am I ready to pay for that? Money-wise, time-wise, effort-wise, and so on.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing. Shamala, how about you? Do you have anything to share there?
I don't have anything under delegate, outsource, or delete. However, what I do appreciate that I'm taking away from our time so far together is that the decision, I can automate the decision and just, say, okay, 30 minutes to an hour every day, I will actually take the step and actually do the clearing up physically, and I don't have to think about it. Just say, okay, I'll take it. Just, it can be as little as 30 minutes. I think that's important for me, actually, to actually get started to do that, and not just sort of, as Daniel mentioned as well, it's just sort of occupying my thoughts. I just sort of get rid of that. So so that's good, because I make decisions about everything else, like running, getting to the gym. So I really should be able to act upon this decision as well. So.
Isn't it interesting how sometimes we have this muscle, but we don't think of applying this muscle for something else?
It's true.
Right?
It's quite embarrassing to admit it.
It's not embarrassing, Shamala, and I'm very grateful for you.
I commit myself to a certain number of kilometers every week to run, and I achieve that, but I can't sort of get myself moving on this point. And I think it's a mental block, really.
And that could be good to see what is that mental block, where is it rooting, or where are its roots, and where is it coming from.
Yeah, that's true.
So there might be some soul searching to do there to remove this threshold. But as you said, maybe it's just as easy as committing and putting it on my calendar, like 30 minutes per day in the morning, I do clean up.
Yep. Exactly.
And there, you said about you don't have anything on the other 3 categories, and with the cleaning up, I would suggest ask for help. This is something that I have noticed for myself, that I could often have this mental strain, and the whole scope is the tough part for me, and that's why I never start. But if I actually ask someone to do it with me, and talking about cleaning, that was actually the example from last week for me. I work from home, my husband doesn't. And I have noticed how much of my mental energy went onto seeing the dirty dishes in the sink and stuff like that, or like kitchen surface not cleaned. And I'm not saying that it's my husband who's been messy, it just hasn't been our priority together. But I was suffering from it because I would be seeing it every time I take a break, and I take a break from computer and I want to go and recharge myself somehow. And I come to the kitchen to make a coffee or something and I see this mess. Or I would need to take half an hour of my work time in the beginning of the day to clean that space. And that was annoying the shit out of me the whole week last week. So on our Sunday review, we have this review with my husband when we sit down and discuss different categories of our life. I said, can we be more mindful to actually clean up in the evening directly after the dinner, or once we have put our daughter to bed, before we go to bed, so that it's clean and I don't have to go through that. And it's not about me completely outsourcing it to my husband, but I shared that burden or that activity with him, and it's not a problem at all for us to do it. It's not like we're super messy and it just takes hours every day, no, but just that like simple effort and deciding and committing to doing it to keep the kitchen a bit cleaner, it is making a huge difference. So I really want to kind of challenge you there a bit, thinking like, okay, what in this cleaning up process can I actually ask for help with? Delegation, outsourcing. Maybe it is asking your kids soon to fly away, right, to clean up their space, or helping them bring things to the recycling stations, or whatever it is, or maybe help them or ask them to join you in the process now and then, and things like that. Just open up your mind to that.
It's a very good point, actually. I share this, I'm very open about this, the fact that I already have a vision of how the space will look like. I have it in my mind. I already know what things are going to be put in and what things have to be taken away, because we were talking about a room that my daughter had, and I'm going to make it as an extra guest room for my family, because my daughter has her own apartment. So there it's not so much getting her to do it. This is something I have to do. But I've already sort of asked for extra space in the garage, and I've already told my husband, these things will have to go there. So it's a question of me sort of getting through, taking things away. However, and here, this is something you mentioned, Anna, among the boxes and the things that I have to get through are also cards that have been written to me by my father. So those things will not be taken away, but I have to start taking other things away that, that have no emotional, to which I have no emotional attachment, but sort of to get over that. So for me, I think what you help with here is the automation. It's just like, okay, I just take half an hour every day and just go and take things out, which I can. And I think over a week, I'm going to notice such a big difference.
Yeah. It's usually about starting. Quite often it is, right? When we think about the whole scope, you probably, like some of you have heard this before. I'm saying that quite often we stand in the valley in Nepal and we're looking at the top of Everest, if we're lucky to see it in a clear day, and we're like, it's so hard to jump there. So we don't even start hiking to the base camp because we think, oh, it's impossible to jump there. So you're just standing in the valley overwhelmed. And that's what you're doing with automating that decision. Like 30 minutes per day in the morning, I clean up. This is this micro step to start moving towards the base camp and hopefully successfully do the whole expedition.
Yes, exactly. And I just sort of can't understand why I can't do it, because I've made other decisions. I've decided, okay, I'll run a marathon, I'll cycle 300 kilometers, I've done all that. So where is the determination lacking to actually take that first step in such a simple, well, so-called simple task, really?
Well, what was coming up for me from what you've said so far, and let me know whether it resonates or not, is a lot of emotional load attached to this, your life is changing. So this cleaning up is about really ending some phase, and maybe there are some unclosed parts of that life that you're not ready to somehow give up on, or you're not ready to process and really officially close it, and so on. As you said about kids moving out, your daughter moved out and you're now working in her room. How is that emotionally for you? How is it with going through the things that are related and give you memories about your father when it's still quite fresh after saying farewell to him? So maybe your work could be 15 minutes cleaning up and 15 minutes just sitting and thinking how I feel and journaling on that.
That's a good idea. Yeah.
Just to go through this cleaning up process internally, because what I hear is that if there is some resistance or some fear towards the emotional part related to the physical cleaning up.
Yes, that is actually, I think you've actually hit the nail on the head there. You really have.
Happy to help.
Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks so much for sharing so openly. And yeah, kudos for already asking for help and delegating some things there. That's huge, and that's very important for us. So this is the main part I wanted to go through today. And as I said, I want you to take it and really commit to continuing with these practices for the next 4 weeks. And there is in the workbook on page 7, you see the task, a suggestion how you can work with that on a deeper level, to journal or to write down things every 30 minutes, to have a reminder, to have a timer on your phone, for example, and every 30 minutes when it rings, you just write down what you have done. And that doesn't have to be an essay, just a couple of words, what has happened in the past half an hour, to really get the best idea of where your time and energy goes. And talking about that, when you write down what has happened in that time span, also reflect on how does that make me feel, and do I feel more energized, do I feel more drained, and so on and so forth. So when you have this much data, it just becomes so much easier to take some decisions, and it's so much easier to take the power back. And very important part is to be a gentle, caring parent to yourself here, to not beat yourself up like, oh, why did I spend 30 minutes on the damn TikTok or whatever it is, or like, why did I did this presentation myself, if that should be the intern doing it and they just didn't do it on time or not to a good quality, whatever it is like that. Take it as the neutral data. This is something where we do such a huge disservice to ourselves quite often, when even our emotions we take as we put labels on them: positive, negative, good, bad, black, white, but it's all data. And the more data you have, the better, well-informed decision can you take. So if you reflect on something and you see yeah, I've done it now, it shouldn't be me, it should be in the delegation part, right? Take it as a neutral data that, there is some space for improvement here, some action needs to be taken, and so on and so forth. If it's emotions that come up, for example, you say yeah, you notice that you have spent half an hour on the social media, and there is some shame coming up there. Don't blame yourself for that shame. Take that shame as neutral data and think, what does this shame mean for me? It's another piece of puzzle for me to understand myself better and to act better. When you take away this positivity, negativity from everything that's happening to you, and you understand it's just your labels and your judgment that you put on there, it becomes much easier to go into the active mode, in a way of really acting from this knowledge, from this data, instead of just sitting and worrying, sitting and blaming yourself, sitting and shaming yourself, and so on and so forth. So this is a last mind shift I want to drop here for today, about really seeing everything that you notice about yourself, whether it's how you spend your time, how you spend your energy, what pops up for you, what kind of feelings and emotions. Take it as neutral data. and see where it leads you to, or what it leads you to. So, good in time. I'm very thankful to all of you for the participation today and being so open. Let's do the last around the table or around the screen. And let me know what is the action that you're taking or the main insight for you from the past 80 minutes. Daniel.
No, I was just landing on the last bit there. Instead of the blame and shame game, because I mean, just because we're trying to implement a new system doesn't mean to say we have to get it all right straight away. So when it comes to the process of self-development, to not beat ourselves up because we're not making linear development. So, we'll have backlashes and we'll be more, on top of things and less, and that will go up and down, but to not give up just because it's not working perfectly. That's the one thing, definitely. But,
Happy it's landing. Thanks, Daniel. Didius, how about you?
I mean, I've only done this sort of to-do list planning, or what you would call it, for work. So I'll start doing it for my private life now then as well, and see how that goes.
That's cool. Let me know how it goes.
Yeah.
Thumbs up there. Thanks. Thanks, Didius. Shamala, how about you?
For me, it's just what I take away from today is actually what you said is actually just the 30 minutes, and to actually split the 30 minutes into quarter of an hour just actually doing the physical task, and actually 15 minutes actually giving myself the chance to process the emotions that are related to the task, because right now I think that's where I am. I really have to sort of allow myself to feel everything, because I'm quite used to being very much sort of crisis management mode and getting things done, So the will has been there for many other things. So it's just a question of getting to that same level here. And what I think is going to be really interesting is actually to do the journaling for 1 week. And I agree with Daniel, I think we should always be quite open to not getting it right the first time.
And even 100th time, talking from experience. It's never perfect. You can get very close to perfect, but then you get again some data that shows you this can be improved. And it's just part of the journey. And it's really mind shifting and life changing to accept it as part of a journey, that it's never perfect, but it's just the point.
So I'm looking forward to that actually, because I really don't feel the activities that actually make me feel drained, but I think it's a question of, am I on a neutral level or do I feel uplifted? Because I'm doing things around my life to make sure that I really don't get down to where people where I feel energy strained. I've got to the age where I've actually been able to ensure that I only surround myself with people who actually can give me energy, and to whom I can give energy as well. So there's always going to be good exchange there. I know it sounds a bit crass, but that's the way it is.
No, it is very important. And I really love your reflection about I don't have anything in my life that is draining me. But then again, am I going on neutral, or am I charging myself and filling myself even more? So this is what I love this takeaway for yourself. And it comes full circle to what we started with, how you said that there is no overwhelm, maybe or high stress levels, but there are some things that you want to shift. And I'm happy that you found some ideas of what can you do to actually make that shift, and I know what to reflect on.
Thank you for that.
Thank you so much for the participation. You always know where to find me, and I'm very grateful for you being part of this community. And please keep spreading the goodness here. And it's not about me promoting my services necessarily, but it's really about our commitment to make this world a better place. And what you've been doing here today on yourself, that's already something that creates impact in this world, positive impact. And if you feel like someone else could appreciate that and are ready to do this work, then let them know about these masterclasses. Maybe share the registration link with them so that they get the recording, so that we can help each other grow in a sustainable way.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.